Matt, my mom is still inside.
My best friend, on the verge of tears, pointed at the burning house and shouted. He had been my rock during the hardest times of my life. His mom was just as precious to me, a person I owed so much to. She was trapped in the flames, her life hanging by a thread.
Matt? Hearing his desperate cry, I rushed into the collapsing building.
Calling out her name, I blindly pushed through the intense flames and smoke. When I finally found her, I reassured her as we made our way to the front door together.
It was just as we were almost outside.
A burning beam collapsed onto my right leg.
Watch out. My name is Matt Anderson.
I'm 32 years old. In my life, there's something I deeply regret. Just one thing, no matter how much I regret it, I can never take it back.
That is. Hey, Matt. Starting tomorrow, you're banned from school lunch. You know why, right? Tell your mom to pay the lunch fees, will ya? This was back when I was in elementary school.
My parents had divorced, and I was living with my mom in what they called a single-parent household. We were so poor that it was well known at school. I always wore dirty, ill-fitting clothes and carried a battered backpack my mom had found somewhere.
There were many months when we couldn't pay for school lunches, and I was often teased by my classmates. Shut up.
I don't need that disgusting lunch anyway. Of course, I was always hungry, and school lunch was the only time I could eat until I was full. But I pretended to be tough and fought with my classmates instead.
Why was I the only one? Back then, I was constantly angry at everything around me.
Looking back now, I realize I was in the middle of my rebellious phase.
And all the frustration I couldn't release at school ended up directed at my mom. Matt. The school called again. You got into another fight? Please, give me a break. Shut up.
I hated everything, the dirty clothes, the broken backpack, always being hungry, the small and dark apartment,
and being mocked by everyone around me.
When I was 10, I took out all my frustration on my mom after she got home from her part-time job.
I'm sorry. She didn't argue back.
She just kept apologizing over and over, waiting for me to finish.
It wasn't that she didn't have anything to say.
She was simply too exhausted from working multiple part-time jobs to even muster the energy to respond.
I realized that only after she was gone. That day, I had a huge fight with her in the morning. I'll figure out the money, okay? Just ask them to give us a little more time. What? Why should I have to say that?
The argument was over the payments for the 6th grade class trip. It wasn't much, just a few dollars each month. But even that was more than we could afford. The day before, my teacher had warned me that if we didn't pay soon, I wouldn't be able to go on the trip, and I was at my breaking point.
Why was I the only one who had to feel this miserable? I wished I had been born into a family with just a little more money.
No, I wished I hadn't been born to this mother in the first place.
That's when it happened. I said the one thing I should never have said. It's all your fault.
I wish you'd just disappear, you worthless hag.
Matt.
I ignored my mother, who stood there in shock, and slung my backpack over my shoulder.
Even as I walked out the door of our apartment, I didn't look back at her once.
I finally said it, serves her right. Feeling a strange sense of relief, I headed to school in unusually high spirits.
That day, no matter what my classmates said, it didn't bother me at all. But then, Matt. Pack up and get ready to go home right now, your mom.
It was right before lunch break ended. My homeroom teacher burst into the library, panic written all over his face.
That's when I found out my mother had been in a car accident. Oh, Matt. When I arrived at the hospital, a woman from the neighborhood came rushing over. She was Mrs. Emily Ross, whom my mom had been close enough with to list as an emergency contact. Her face was pale, and she gently placed a hand on my shoulder, telling me to stay calm. Your mom is resting in that room over there. Let's go see her together, okay? Ha! She wasn't feeling well and left her part-time job early. The driver said she crossed the street even though the light was red. Her words felt distant, like something happening in another world, completely unreal. In the morgue, my mother lay there, her entire body wrapped in bandages from head to toe. With the little skin I could see as white as a porcelain doll. No, this isn't my mom. Matt. I know it's hard to believe, but your mom is, she's gone. Emily's voice broke with tears as she hugged me tightly. Still, I couldn't accept it. I couldn't believe that the woman lying there was the same mother I had argued with just hours ago. The thought that I would never again fight with her or even speak to her was too much to bear. This is all my fault. Matt. It was all because I told her to disappear. Suddenly, the weight of reality crashed down on me, and I collapsed to the floor, unable to stand. I'm so sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry. From that moment, and for over 20 years now, I've lived with deep regret. And so, I've come to terms with the fact that I'll likely live for 30, 40 years, or perhaps even longer, carrying this regret with me every day. Because I'll never be able to apologize to her for the terrible things I said. And I know there will never come a day when I can be forgiven. After my mother's funeral, the remaining issue was what would happen to me. Ever since the divorce, my father had disappeared without a trace, and my parents had eloped to get married in the first place. Neither my father's nor my mother's relatives wanted to take me in, leading to heated arguments that dragged on for more than 6 months. If it ever comes to that, you're always welcome to stay with us. My son would be happy to have you. While everything was being sorted out, Emily took me in. Though we were complete strangers, she treated me like family, far more than my blood relatives ever did. And while my dad's not around, I'll be his stand-in. So, Matt, you can count on me too. Emily had a son the same age as me. His name was Jack. He was the only classmate who had ever stood by me at school. Big and strong, with a sense of justice so fierce he dreamed of becoming a police officer one day. But won't it be a burden with me here? I'll move out as soon as I can. What? You're smart, but man, you can be pretty dense sometimes, huh, Matt? Ha! Jack laughed and said, "It's not a burden at all. We want you here, that's why we invited you. Honestly, I was nervous being the only one at home, you know? But with 2 of us, I feel better. So help me protect my mom until I have a little brother or sister, okay, Matt?" Yes. At that time, Emily was pregnant. She was a career woman working at a large company and was on maternity leave. Her husband was away for work, and even though she was busy preparing for the baby's arrival, she still took care of me. Most of the preparations are already done, honestly. It's almost boring now. All that's left is to come up with a name for this little one. Hey, Matt, would you help me think of one? What? The baby's name. We're keeping the gender a surprise until the birth, so we need names for both a boy and a girl. But, come on, I've been thinking about it forever too. Let's do it together, Matt. Yeah, Jack's right. Can we count on you? Sure. Looking back,
I realize now that this was Emily's way of helping me. She wanted to lift my spirits, knowing how withdrawn I had become. By giving me the important task of thinking of a name for her baby, she was trying to help me heal. Emily's warm, almost motherly kindness, along with Jack's straightforward, genuine friendship, gave me the strength to get through the hardest time of my life, right after losing my mom. If I could, I wanted to stay in this home forever. To live with Jack and Emily, just like this. I wanted that so much, I even forgot about what I had done to my own mother. I let myself believe that I could be happy again, and maybe that's why fate struck back so cruelly. Right before I moved up to 6th grade, I received a wound that would never heal. It was on my way home from school one evening. Okay. I think that's everything. Got everything Emily asked for. At the time, I was trying to help out around the house as much as I could. I felt guilty for staying with Jack's family for so long, as no one had come forward to take me in. At the same time, I was concerned about Emily, who was in her final month of pregnancy. That day, I had been sent to do some shopping, which is why I got home later than Jack. What's that? In the distance, I saw black smoke rising into the sky. The only thing in that direction was the neighborhood I was heading toward, where Jack's house was. No way, right? A bad feeling started to creep over me, and I instinctively quickened my pace. Suddenly, a fire truck sped past me, sirens blaring. What? My heart began to race, and cold sweat trickled down my back. There was a fire, and it might be near Jack's house. I had to go. The awful feeling grew stronger, and I clutched the grocery bag to my chest as I started to run. By the time I reached the neighborhood, out of breath, my worst fear had come true. Matt! From the crowd gathered around, Jack ran out toward me, his face pale and on the verge of tears. Thick black smoke filled the air. The overwhelming stench of burning wood and plastic filled my nose. As the firefighters yelled for everyone to stay back, Jack grabbed my shoulders and shook me. What do we do, Matt? What do we do? Calm down, Jack. Where's your mom? My mom. She's still in there. Jack's trembling hand pointed toward the house, Emily's house, now engulfed in bright red flames, with the second floor completely blackened. What? The fire started at the neighbor's house. She made me get out, but my mom is still in the kitchen. Covered in soot, Jack broke down, sobbing. He kept repeating, "She's still inside, Matt." What do we do? No way. Emily's still in there. It's my fault, Matt. What do I do? I said something horrible. I told my mom I didn't need her, or the baby. What? That morning, Jack and Emily had gotten into an argument. I didn't know exactly what they were fighting about, but Jack had stormed out of his room, skipping breakfast, and gone to school alone. Clearly upset. I didn't mean it, not at all, but I still said it. I get it. Jack and I were the same. We both let our anger get the best of us and said things we didn't really mean. The difference was, Jack still had a chance to apologize, to make things right. Help me. Amidst the crackling of the flames and the sound of collapsing beams, I could hear a faint scream, Emily's voice. Without thinking, my body moved on its own. Matt. Hey, you. Stop. Come back. I didn't hear Jack's voice or the firefighter yelling at me to stop. I ignored the heat from the flames and dove into the burning house. Emily. Where are you? Emily. I shouted her name as I pushed through the smoke and flames, making my way through the crumbling structure. When I finally reached the kitchen, I found her huddled in a corner, protecting her large belly.
Emily, it's okay. I'm here. What? Matt? Why are you?
Her eyes widened in shock when she saw me. From here, my memory becomes fuzzy. I vaguely remember running to her and telling her we needed to get out, but the next thing I knew, I was lying in a hospital bed,
staring up at a white ceiling. Matt.
Huh? Slowly turning my head, I saw Jack sitting beside me, his face a mess of tears and snot.
You idiot. What were you thinking? Jack, are you mad at me? Of course I am.
Jack shouted, pointing sharply at something. I followed his gaze and saw my right leg, wrapped completely in bandages.
A burning beam fell and pinned your leg. You were trapped. What? I hadn't even realized I'd been injured until Jack pointed it out.
Later, a doctor explained that I had suffered severe burns, even damaging the nerves in my leg. That's why I hadn't felt any pain.
Seriously, I thought my heart was gonna stop, and it's all because of me. Oh, wait, what about Emily? Is she okay? Panicking, I scanned the room, but Emily wasn't there.
Seeing my frantic search, Jack wiped away his tears with his fist and, for the first time, gave me a faint smile.
Yeah, she inhaled a lot of smoke, but she's going to be fine. The baby, too. Thank God.
I was more relieved by that news than by the fact that I was safe. I didn't want Jack, my best friend, to go through what I did. The thought of never being able to make up with someone you care about, like what happened with me and my mom, was unbearable.
Jack, make sure you apologize to your mom, make things right. I will, thanks, Matt. Thank you for saving them.
Just as Jack began crying again, I fell back into a deep sleep. When I woke up the next time, I found Emily and an unfamiliar man, probably in his 40s, sitting beside my bed.
How are you feeling, Matt? I'm okay.
It didn't take long for me to realize that the man was Emily's husband, Jack's father, who had rushed back from his work assignment.
His tear-streaked face looked almost identical to Jack's.
With his face twisted in emotion, he tightly gripped my hand. Thank you so much for saving my wife and child, Matt.
You're a hero to us. Hey, you're going to scare him. Calm down a bit,
Emily said, gently scolding him with a soft smile. Then, her expression shifted to something more serious as she bowed her head deeply toward me.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks to you, me, and my baby are both safe.
I don't know how to repay you. We'll do everything we can for you. Don't worry about anything, her husband added. That's right, Matt. Just focus on getting better.
You don't need to worry about anything else, Emily reassured me.
Okay. At the time, I didn't fully understand what they meant.
But shortly after, a relative was finally found who agreed to take me in. I moved far away, to a place that required a plane ride, and from then on, I lost contact with Jack and his family. A few years later, when I entered high school, I became an outcast.
Did you hear? Matt's skipping the sports day again. Yeah, he's been like that since middle school.
Always with the "my leg hurts" excuse.
He's just faking it, right?
He even puts on a show, limping around like that. Some of my classmates mocked me, imitating the way I walked as they laughed. During moments like those, I always kept a straight face, silently walking out of the classroom,
dragging my right leg awkwardly behind me.
Because of the burns I suffered during the fire, I was left with a disability in my right leg. It wasn't severe enough to require a wheelchair, but the skin on my thigh and calf had tightened, leaving me unable to move it properly. Of course, I couldn't participate in any strenuous activities, so I always had to sit out during PE. My middle school and high school classmates would laugh at me behind my back, and sometimes even to my face. "Hey, Matt, I heard you've got a pretty gnarly scar on your leg. Mind showing me?" Sometimes, even students from other classes, who I'd never spoken to before, would approach me out of the blue like that. I didn't have anyone to stand up for me. And it was the same at the home of the relatives who took me in. "Matt, you'll be getting a job after high school, right? You're not seriously thinking of asking to go to college, are you? Finally, we'll be rid of the pathetic freeloader." I can't wait. Don't be so mean. But I did see his scar the other day. It's so gross, I can't even think about it without feeling sick. To them, I was nothing more than a burden, an orphan with a disability. They took care of me in the barest sense but hid me away like a shameful secret. I was pressured, in not so subtle ways, to leave once I graduated from high school. Yes, of course, I would say. I was as uncomfortable in that environment as they were with me. While my classmates were busy studying for college entrance exams, I was desperately searching for a job that didn't require a degree. That's when I found work as an employee at a hot spring inn. The fact that I could live and work there suited me perfectly, given that I would soon be out on my own. "Thank you for everything," I said as I left my relative's house on the day of my high school graduation. All I had with me were a few changes of clothes and my mother's small memorial tablet that I had kept by my side all these years. It was a quiet departure, with no one there to see me off. At the inn where I started working, I was treated much the same as before. Does he really need to limp like that? He's probably exaggerating. I bet he can walk just fine. Ugh, so embarrassing. Try to stay out of sight when the guests are around, okay? You're making us look bad. As long as your leg's the only problem, you should still be able to carry these, right? Gossip and blatant mockery were a daily occurrence. I was never allowed to serve customers and was stuck in the back of the inn, burdened with heaps of work as part of the constant harassment. It was all for one reason. I have a disability in my legs. Don't worry about it, they'll get bored eventually. Just hang in there. Even the manager, who had hired me saying all that mattered was my willingness to work, never bothered to step in and stop the others. There was no one on my side here either. Still, I kept working at the inn, not because I had nowhere else to go, but for another reason. Good night, Mom. See you tomorrow. Every night, as I finished my day, I would speak to the small memorial tablet in my room, picturing my mother's face. I wondered if she was angry at me in her final moments, or if she was in such a state of shock that she crossed the street while the light was red, without thinking. I had asked myself those same, unanswerable questions hundreds of times over the years. Time passed in a blur, and before I knew it, I was 32 years old. Welcome. My name is Matt, and I'll be showing you to your room. By now, I had become a senior employee at the inn. I was even trusted with serving guests directly, and the open ridicule had mostly disappeared. Occasionally, I would get a curious look from guests who didn't know my story. But I had come to accept that my right leg was simply part of who I was. Let's see, the next guest, huh? Their reservation changed from 2 people to just 1? Yeah, we got a call this morning. The guest seemed pretty upset. Upset? I raised an eyebrow at my junior coworker's comment. The reserved room was the most luxurious suite in the inn, offering the best view. Since it was the guest's first stay, I couldn't help but feel that it was probably meant for a special occasion, perhaps an anniversary. And now it seemed a bit of a waste with only one person staying.
Maybe they had a fight or something? Who knows? Let's not pry too much into the guest's personal business.
I warned my junior not to speculate too much and glanced back down at the reservation list. Even though I had just told them not to pry, I couldn't shake the strange feeling I had about this guest who would be staying alone in the special suite.
The reason was Ms. Ross. That name held a significance I couldn't ignore.
It instantly reminded me of my old best friend, Jack, and the woman who had helped me through the hardest time of my life, Emily.
I wonder how Jack and his family are doing.
When Ms. Ross arrived exactly on time for her reservation, the entire atmosphere of the inn changed.
Every employee and guest present seemed taken aback. "Hi, I have a reservation under the name Ross."
I apologize for any inconvenience caused by the last-minute change in my reservation.
"No, not at all,"
I stammered, feeling unusually nervous as I greeted her. Because standing before me was a tall, stunning woman with a figure that could rival any model. Her porcelain-like skin was flawless, and her silky, glossy hair cascaded effortlessly over her shoulders. Her features were so impeccably beautiful that they went beyond beautiful, so she radiated an almost intimidating aura.
Everyone around was left speechless by her beauty. Is there something on my face? Ha! No, I'm sorry. Get a grip, I mentally scolded myself. No matter how gorgeous a guest might be, it was unprofessional to get distracted. My job was to make sure they could relax and enjoy their stay. However, just as I began leading her down the hallway to her room, she suddenly stepped in front of me. "So, I'll show you to your room. My name is Matt." "Matt, could I talk to you for a moment?" "Ha!"
Caught off guard, I was stunned as she moved in closer, suddenly gripping my hand tightly. Her beautiful face, the same one I had just been admiring, was now only inches away from mine. My heart began to race, and my face flushed with heat.
"Is something wrong?"
"It's terrible. I was supposed to come on this trip with my mom, but this morning, out of nowhere, she said she was too busy with work and told me to go by myself. It's always the same, work, work, work."
I see. Today is her birthday."
I booked this special room to celebrate, but she chose work over her own daughter.
"Can you believe that?"
Well, we had this huge argument at 5:30 this morning. I told her I'm never celebrating her birthday again.
"Oh."
I was completely overwhelmed by her energy and found myself unable to say anything more. Given my first impression of her, I had assumed she was cool and quiet, so her outburst left me at a loss for how to react. In all my years working here, I had never encountered a guest who was this open and friendly right from the start.
"Oh, I'm so sorry. I got carried away. My mom's always telling me I'm too familiar with people." "No, it's not that. You're so kind, Matt." "Thank you." Her slightly dejected expression made her look surprisingly innocent and cute.
My heart skipped a beat, but then she said something that made it race even faster.
"Matt, have we met before? I feel like this isn't the first time I've seen you." "What? Maybe if we spend more time together, I'll remember." "Oh. Doesn't this inn offer a guided tour of the area? Could you show me around once I've settled in?"
Please," she asked, clasping her hands together and flashing me a warm smile.
My heart started pounding again.
For the first time since I started working here, I couldn't immediately respond with a professional certainly.
"Wow, this view is amazing.
The view from your room is beautiful, but this spot is something special.
It's a hidden gem.
At first, I was still nervous, walking next to such a stunning woman, but as we toured the local sites, we started to warm up to each other.
By the time we were halfway through, we were chatting easily. Ms. Ross, next I'll show you.
Oh, you don't need to be so formal.
I want us to be friends, Matt.
Ah. I was beginning to understand that she was the type of person who said things that made your heart skip a beat without even realizing it.
Okay then. You can call me Matilda, my first name. No, that's a bit. I couldn't possibly call a guest by their first name. Ha, you're so serious, Matt. And so kind.
I appreciate that you're walking slowly, so I can enjoy the scenery at my own pace.
Ha!
It was only then that I realized I had made a mistake. When she asked for the guided tour, I should have explained that I walked slowly because of my leg injury.
I should have also mentioned that if there were any emergencies, I wouldn't be able to move quickly. Normally, I only accept these requests if the guest understands those conditions.
But today, I had forgotten to explain.
I'm sorry.
The truth is, I have a bad leg, so I can only walk slowly.
What?
Her eyes widened in surprise, and I quickly bowed my head. I couldn't believe I had let myself make a mistake at work just because I was flustered by such a beautiful guest.
It was embarrassing. Please, don't bow your head. Are you okay? Is your injury serious?
Ha! You hurt your leg, didn't you?
And here I am, asking you to give me a tour. I'm so sorry.
Now it was Matilda's turn to bow her head in a fluster.
As she apologized, I instinctively bowed again, saying, No, it's fine.
But then, she insisted with another apology, and soon we were both bowing to each other in the middle of the tourist spot.
It's an injury from over 20 years ago.
It doesn't hurt anymore, so my pace is just a bit slower, that's all.
Really?
I was sure you were showing us around while enduring the pain. But I'm so glad that's not the case. Seeing her cheeks flush, a small smile crept onto my face as well.
She's such a beautiful and kind woman.
And because of that, there was something I had to say to her.
I know it might be presumptuous of me to say this to you as a customer, but...
With that preface, I looked straight into her eyes. Please don't say you'll never celebrate your mother's birthday again.
What?
She looked puzzled, so I explained. I told her that I had lost my mother just a few days before her birthday. I believed that day would always come.
Even after a big argument, I thought we'd make up with just a simple happy birthday.
It felt a bit awkward, but I was sure I'd say it again that year. But that day didn't come, and I realized then that nothing is guaranteed in life.
Goodbyes come suddenly, without any warning.
I'll never see the joy on her face when I wished her happy birthday again. Even though she was my only family, I couldn't have truly wished for her to disappear. And now, I can't take back those cruel words I said to her at the end.
Because she's gone now.
Please, don't have the same regrets I do.
I'm begging you.
She's a kind person, and if that moment comes, she'll regret it even more than I do. That's why, despite my position, I felt I had to tell her.
I'm sorry for bringing up such a somber topic on your mother's birthday.
Please, don't apologize. As she shook her head firmly, I couldn't help but think how kind she really was. Then, suddenly, she asked something unexpected.
Matt, is there anything else you regret?
Ha!
For example, about your leg.
She glanced nervously at my right leg as she asked.
Why would she ask something like that?
I was puzzled but shook my head firmly. No, I have no regrets about this leg. The burn left me with a permanent disability, and it caused me a lot of pain over the years. People's stares were always cold, and no one ever reached out to help.
For a long time, I felt so alone. But not once have I thought that I shouldn't have jumped into those flames. This right leg is proof that I saved someone. Rather than regret, I actually. Could you tell me more about that? Ha! It was the first time anyone had asked me that.
I hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "Of course." Then, I shared the story of how I got burned and the life I'd lived since. I felt so proud. I never quit working at the inn, no matter what people said, because I already had enough regret from what happened with my mother. I swore to her that I wouldn't give in to the words or harassment from others and live with more regret.
I vowed to live in a way that I'd never regret anything again. So I only have one regret.
That I never made up with my mother before saying goodbye forever.
That's the one thing I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. That's why you should.
Just as I was about to finish by asking her to reconcile with her mother, she cut me off.
It's getting dark, isn't it? We should probably head back.
With that, she abruptly turned and started walking quickly down the path we'd come from.
Had I upset her by going on about myself? Feeling anxious, I hurried after her.
But just as we reached the front of the inn, she suddenly stopped, her face turning red, and then she leaned in close to whisper in my ear.
Please come to my room tonight.
What?
I'll be waiting.
Before I could react, she dashed into the inn, leaving me standing there with my heart racing.
That night, I was summoned to her special room once again. What awaited me there was.
The word honey trap suddenly flashed through my mind the moment I stepped into the room. There she was, welcoming me with a smile as if she had been waiting for me. And a large man with a stern expression, sitting across the room.
Excuse me, but who might you be? Are you Matt?
The man's voice was low and intense as he glared at me with sharp eyes. Though we seemed about the same age, he had an imposing presence.
Almost like someone who lived a very rough life.
Yes.
I see.
As I stiffened with fear, the man leaned in closer, scrutinizing my face. I shot a desperate look at her for help, but then...
Wait, what? Matilda. I was stunned. Matilda was crying.
She wiped away the tears that streamed from the corners of her eyes with those long fingers, as if I had done something terrible to her.
No. I didn't do anything. Didn't do anything? I didn't do anything. Wait, that's not what I meant. This was bad. It sounded like I was guilty of something.
Or worse, like I had come here with some kind of intent. While I frantically shook my head, the man drew even closer. He was extending his arms toward me. I braced myself, thinking he was about to grab my collar, and squeezed my eyes shut.
But just then,
ugh! I heard a strange groan near my ear, and when I opened my eyes, the man in front of me was crying.
What? It really is you. Matt. I finally found you.
The man placed a hand on my shoulder, crying as he called me Matt.
There was something oddly familiar about the way he said my name. Are you Jack?
The name slipped from my lips naturally.
Yes. It's me, Jack Ross. Hey Matilda, I finally found him.
His face lit up, and he turned to Matilda with a bright smile.
Matilda wiped her tears and nodded enthusiastically. Yeah. I'm so happy too. I'm so glad for you, Jack.
What? In stunned silence, I watched as Jack, my long-lost friend, and Matilda shared a smile.
If Jack was Matilda's brother, then. Wait a second. Yes, she is, Matt.
Without wiping away the tears that welled up again, Jack nodded repeatedly. Matilda was the child who had been in Emily's womb 22 years ago.
After the fire, she was born at the hospital and grew up to be the adult standing before me now. My name is Matilda Ross.
You must be the Matt who saved my mother and me. With tears in her eyes, Matilda gently took my hand.
I could hardly believe what I was seeing.
My childhood friend, whom I had been separated for 22 years, was now crying with the same scrunched up face as back then. The child who wasn't even born yet at the time had grown into a full-grown woman, calling my name.
When I heard about you, I thought, could it be?
The story was exactly the same as the one I had heard from my mother and brother countless times. A 10-year-old boy kept encouraging my mother, who was frozen with fear in the middle of the blazing fire.
He helped her to the front door, supporting her the whole way. But just as they were about to get out, a burning beam fell on the boy's leg.
What made her think it was me was the part about losing my mother just days before her birthday. And when she heard about me suffering severe burns on my right leg while saving a pregnant woman, she was certain. That's why she rushed back to the room and called Jack here. She told me they had finally found the person they had been searching for all these years.
You've been searching for me all this time. Yes, ever since you moved away, my mom kept trying to get updates.
But all we ever heard from relatives was that Matt is doing well.
Eventually, they stopped picking up our calls.
When I graduated from high school, my mom went to visit in person.
But you had already left by then. When she asked where you went, no one knew.
So, for over 10 years, we kept looking for you. I can't believe it was by chance that Matilda found you.
Jack chuckled bitterly. It was so unbelievable, I couldn't help but stare. And seeing that it was really me standing there, they were overwhelmed with emotion. Why would you go to such lengths to find me? Of course we would. You saved my mom and Matilda's lives. You're a hero to our family. No amount of thanks could ever be enough. And if you ever need anything, we'll help in any way we can.
Then, Jack hesitated for a moment.
He glanced at my right leg. When you walked in, I noticed you were limping a bit. Is it still not moving properly? Well, it's much better now, thanks to your family.
I had learned about this through conversations with relatives after entering middle school. The reason I was suddenly taken in was because of Emily and her husband. They had offered to cover my living expenses, school fees, and even the cost of my burn treatments. While I didn't have everything, they raised me until I graduated high school without any major hardships.
I was also able to receive enough medical treatment at the hospital. So if you're talking about returning favors, I'd say I've already received more than enough. Thank you, truly.
I expressed my gratitude to Jack, as well as to Emily and her husband, who weren't here. Even from afar, they had cared for me. I can't express how much that saved me from the loneliness I felt.
I've always wanted to meet again and say thank you. But with work and everything, so much time passed. But you were left with a disability, huh? Jack muttered bitterly, looking down.
I gave his shoulder a reassuring pat, telling him not to worry. This was the result of my own choice, to act without regret.
So, I didn't regret it at all. By the way, did you make up with Emily, Jack? Yeah, right after that. Just like you said, I apologized right away, and I'm glad I did. Mom and Jack are still really close. Meanwhile, I'm always getting scolded. That's because you never listened to Mom, isn't it? Jack playfully knocked on Matilda's head with his fist.
Their exchange lightened the mood, and Jack finally seemed to relax a little. With a softer expression, he suddenly brought something up.
Hey, Matt. If you're up for it, how about working with me? Ha! Actually, right now. Matilda suddenly interrupted Jack mid-sentence.
What she said left me completely stunned.
My brother is the president now. What? Hey, Matilda. That was the important part. Sorry.
Though Matilda apologized, she couldn't hide her bright smile.
It was as if she couldn't help but feel proud of her brother for being the company president. Well, she beat me to it, but yeah, I'm running a company now.
I was put in charge of one of the subsidiaries under my dad's group.
Wait, your dad runs a group of companies? Jack explained to my astonished self. Not long after Matilda was born, their father, who had been an elite at a major company, became independent.
His company grew rapidly, and now it's a group with dozens of companies under it. Jack, who had been training under his father, was finally appointed president of one of the subsidiaries about 2 years ago. Apparently, their mom is even busier, serving as both the vice president and the president's secretary. A lot has happened over the 22 years since you left, Matt.
Both good things, and of course, bad things. Bad things? Yeah.
As soon as he became president, all kinds of people started cozying up to him. There were high-ranking executives blatantly trying to wrest control away from the inexperienced president. Then there were women who, dazzled by his title, tried to become his girlfriend. And clients who hadn't paid him any attention before suddenly started flattering him nonstop. It became exhausting, trying to figure out who was being sincere and who was lying. Jack sighed as he explained how it had worn him down.
That's why I want to work with people I can trust completely. That's one of the reasons I've been looking for you, Matt. Me? Jack nodded emphatically at my confused reaction.
Then, he extended his hand to me.
Next to him, Matilda was smiling brightly. I need you, Matt. You're the person I trust more than anyone. But I only graduated high school. I'm not sure I could be of any help to you.
I started working for my dad right after high school too. My dad always says he trusts employees with more hands-on experience over those with higher degrees. And that approach is what helped the company grow.
So, it all comes down to how hard you're willing to work, doesn't it? But how do you know you can trust me?
Seeing me trail off and look down, Jack lowered his hand. Then he chuckled, saying, "You're such an idiot."
You've already proven it, haven't you? What?
You saved 2 people who mean the world to me.
Without even thinking about your own safety. How could I trust anyone else over you?
He extended his large hand toward me again.
Take pride in yourself, Matt.
You're my best friend, and I couldn't be prouder of you now and always.
Jack.
He, too, had been thinking about me all this time we'd been apart. I realized then that with people like him caring for me, I was never truly alone.
The joy of that was overwhelming.
As I reached out to grasp Jack's hand, I couldn't hold back the tears that blurred my vision.
Thank you, Jack. I'm so happy we met again. So happy. Me too. Thank you so much, Matt.
With tears streaming down both of our faces, we shook hands firmly.
Watching us, Matilda wiped her eyes, smiling all the while.
For the 3 of us, this night would become an unforgettable memory.
Afterward, I left the inn.
And soon after, I started working at Jack's company.
Under a surprisingly tough boss, I'm now throwing myself into learning the ropes. Most of the company was against the idea of me becoming Jack's right-hand man. But those voices just fuel my determination. I'll prove them wrong with results, I declared with resolve. Jack smiled and gave me a thumbs up. That's why you're the man I trust most in the world. By the way, Matilda wants to invite you to dinner. Are you free tonight? Ha! Just as I stood there, confused, someone burst into the president's office. Jack! Why'd you tell him? You were pacing outside the office forever. Consider this payback from last time. Ugh! Matilda, who was lightly hitting Jack with her fists, had turned bright red up to her ears. When she stopped, she awkwardly turned to face me. As a thank you for 22 years ago, how about tonight? Sure. I'd love to. Really? The moment I agreed, her face lit up like the sun. Her emotions shifted so quickly, it was adorable. My heart suddenly skipped a beat, and Jack nudged me playfully with a grin. She's a handful, but take care of my sister, okay? Ha! I would come to understand the meaning behind those words later. With Jack, my reliable friend and president, always by my side, and Matilda, who was energetic and cheerful, working as a secretary in training, my days became more fulfilling than ever. Amid the busy days, I visited my mother's grave for the first time in 22 years. Beside me stood Emily, who had finally reunited with me, her hands clasped in prayer. Thank you so much, Matt. She whispered, eyes closed. I just thanked your mother too. I told her that because she gave birth to such a wonderful son, my daughter and I were able to survive. During her life, your mother did so much for me. Emily smiled as she looked up, explaining that she had expressed her gratitude once again. Did my mother ever say anything about me? I asked hesitantly. I wasn't exactly a son to be proud of when my mother was alive. She worked herself to the bone for me, yet I was always rebellious. I braced myself, expecting to hear complaints. Sensing my apprehension, Emily gently placed her hand on my back. She always said you were incredibly smart and truly kind at heart. What? Your mother was always proud of you, Matt. She never said a single bad thing about you. As she softly rubbed my back, Emily smiled warmly. In that moment, tears started to flow uncontrollably down my face. Really? Yes. Until the very end, your mother was proud of you and loved you deeply. I know that feeling, as if it were my own. That's why when I named my daughter, I thought of you. I wanted her to grow up to be just like you. As I listened to her kind words, I couldn't stop the tears. It felt as though my mother was there, telling me it was okay, and my heart felt lighter. From now on, I'll carry the memory of my mother with me. Even if she has forgiven me, the regret I hold will never fade. But something has clearly changed in me. I'm no longer bound by that regret. I've learned to live with it and move forward. That regret is what drives me to cherish the people around me now. It feels like my mother's final gift to me. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, I want to say, thank you to my mother in heaven from now on. I believe she's watching over me with a smile and with pride.